Hello and welcome to this Fathers Group video, which we hope will give you a guide to discipline methods you can use with your kids, along with some positive age-appropriate techniques you can use to reduce conflict and misbehaviour. This is the third and final video we put together for fathers in Southwark. As with the other two videos, I'll be speaking to Mr. Ben Campbell, our Fathers Group parenting lead, who will provide us with some strategies. Just like the previous video, this video is 10-15 minutes in length. If you can find somewhere quiet, just watch this video.
You've already watched the previous videos on communication and child development, and the skills and knowledge you've picked up in those will really help with your approach to discipline, especially with communication. If you're able to adjust your communication style with your child based on their stage of development, this will really help you in managing challenges around behaviour or conflict in the home.
So, Mr. Campbell, we're going to be talking now about discipline.
Yes.
So, the most basic one I think most people want to know is, firstly, what does discipline look like, and why is it disciplining your children so very important?
Okay, so when most people think about discipline, they think about kind of more negative things like telling people off and using different techniques to kind of stop bad behaviour. I think what we have to remember is that the word discipline actually means teaching. So when we discipline our children, what we're trying to do is teach them the best way of handling certain situations, getting them to understand that what they did was incorrect, teaching them the right way to do things, and then hoping that they'll be able to use those new skills should that same situation arise again. If we think about discipline in that way, then we can start to use other strategies. Some of those strategies include negotiation, agreements, and teaching our children about responsibility.
Is there any major difference then between rules and discipline, or do you need both?
It's almost impossible to have one without the other. If you can use rules, then they form part of your discipline routine, and discipline in itself is following rules. Whenever you're trying to change rules or set up rules within a home, the most important thing is to explain to the young person why you're doing it and the benefits to them. I don't think the child necessarily has to agree with you, but they certainly 100% need to understand why you're implementing a rule. And those rules, to be successful, have to be simple and they have to be fair. And again, if you can get your child involved in the setting up of those rules, as well as kind of the benefits of following those rules, maybe the rewards part of that, then again, you're going to have a lot more success.
Can you tell us a bit about why rules are important, especially in a household of children?
Rules are important in all aspects of our society. We have rules when we go to school, we have rules when we're at home. But equally importantly, I think, is that there is always going to be a set of rules that govern us when we're in our adult lives. I guess driving too fast in your car, getting caught by a speeding camera would be one example where the rules are in place, and obviously there are punishments as a result of breaking those rules. And it's important that we teach our children that rules are there to help us and to guide us through things, and that actually following rules is a life skill in itself. If you're trying to get your children to pick up the clothes off their bedroom floor and put them in the washing machine or wherever you'd like them to put them, not only are you teaching them about the importance of being clean and tidy and not having clutter and stuff all over the floor so that you don't walk all over the clothes, but you're also teaching them the value of their belongings. You're teaching them about having an organised space. You're teaching them about all of those important things.
And Mr. Campbell, also a question we get asked is, what else is important in order to establish discipline in the home?
The other aspect of discipline is kind of structure and routine. When our young people go to school, one of the key components of any school day is structure and routine. And it makes them feel calm and confident and to know what's going to happen next. I think if we can sort of replicate some of those things into our own home lives, an example of that would be, let's try and do some schoolwork for the next hour, and then after that, you could have another hour playing, on a game or watching some YouTube or listening to some music or whatever it is you're into. If you can get your child to understand why you're getting them to do certain things, then that's going to be helpful. And if you can get your child kind of focused on building their own routine in their lives, then that's going to have a more positive impact as well. Even if you could just get 1 hour a day where you're kind of getting some structure in place and build up from there, eventually you'll get to a place that you want to be at.
The people that are in the course, some of them had more children than what I did, and they come up with a lot of plans, to sort of keep everything organised, especially for school runs, routines for bedtime, dinner time, family outings and things like that. So it helped me in that way to be able to organise myself a bit more efficiently and to plan things a bit better.
Right, Mr. Campbell, is there anything else we can do alongside rules and discipline that may help?
One important part about implementing discipline and rules within your home is the use of negotiation skills and flexibility. I think if your rules are too rigid, when your child starts to push against those rules, you have very little maneuverability in terms of those conversations that you're having. For example, if you set a bedtime for a small child for 8 o'clock and they would like to stay up a little bit later to watch something on YouTube or something on their tablets, if you're able to negotiate perhaps 8:15, then I think that you get the best of both worlds. Your young person will have an extra 15 minutes and feel like that they've got what they wanted. But equally, if you give them that extra time, they're probably more willing to then go to bed afterwards, and that will help strengthen the bond that you have with your child, or will make things more fun. What I would say also as a caveat to that is that not to give too much leeway, because otherwise they will just stop following the rules altogether. Also, I think negotiating good deals is a key skill in life.
So we talked about discipline, we've talked about rules. So could you talk to us a bit about how rewards can help play a part in keeping children disciplined and also making sure they follow the rules?
Offering some sort of reward system is often the best way to convince our young people that they need to follow the rules that we're trying to instill. You have to be able to teach your children, young people, that you have to work hard. And then if you work hard, you then get the rewards. That is life. Again, it's all about kind of modelling those ideals. Having said all of that, I'm not suggesting for a second that every time your children wash the dishes, you go buy them a JD tracksuit. I think the rewards have to match the kind of demands that you're asking of your young people. And the worst thing you can do as a parent, mother or father or auntie, uncle, whatever, is kind of promise the earth and then not be able to deliver it.
There more than likely be a lot of fathers watching this that will be struggling with exactly that, trying to figure out what reward is proportionate to what task. So yourself being a father, is there any tips or examples you can use that will help other people watching this video?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind, and certainly works with my 2 children, is just giving them some time to play on their games, or using their kind of technology. I think one thing that I certainly use as well and works really well with probably children under sort of 10 or so is, it kind of sounds a bit stupid, but it costs you nothing. Is I offer my services out as a daddy butler. And what that means is that my children, when they do what they're asked, they get a certain amount of time where I will wait hand and foot on them, usually on a Sunday afternoon. It's just a bit of a laugh,
Obviously, one hand you have rewards, in the middle you have discipline, the other side of that line, of course, you have a punishment or a sanction.
I think the kind of idea of being positive in your parenting would mean that really the idea is to kind of probably try and dish out more rewards than you would sanctions, and to focus your parenting on the kind of the benefits of doing good behaviour and following the rules of the home, and doing what is expected of you as a child or a young person, as well as focusing on when your children do something positive and praising that and rewarding the positive things. What you can also do, certainly for younger children, is ignore some behaviours. So for sort of low level annoying behaviour, maybe a child kicking the back of your chair or constantly shouting out your name to get attention. Obviously, there are some behaviours that you just simply cannot ignore, such as maybe a child trying to run into the road, or maybe a child playing with knives in the kitchen. I'm talking about little sets of behaviour where a child is trying to get your attention by doing something negative. If you are able to ask them calmly to stop what they're doing and then ignore them when they continue to do it, and then finally praise them when they do stop doing it, then you've got a far better chance of those sorts of behaviours stopping. Having said that, there are going to be times when, you're going to have to kind of come up with some sanctions for poor behaviour. Some sanctions you could use could be timeout, or maybe removing some of the child's belongings, such as a phone or an Xbox for a certain amount of time, or reducing or stopping some of the rewards that you'd promised them if they behaved well. Really, I think sanctions have to be well thought out also, and in the same way rewards are. What often happens, and again, this has definitely happened to me before, I'm going to hold my hands up to this for sure. What happens is that your children kind of wind you up, and you get annoyed and more annoyed and more annoyed, and then the sanction tends to be quite severe, kind of based on your own frustrations at your child's behaviour. And a lot of fathers I speak to sort of say, well, I was hit when I was a boy and it never did me no harm and all that sort of thing. And I kind of understand that kind of line of thinking, but I think society is changing now. The kind of message around physical chastisement or hitting or smacking, whatever you want to call it, is just not to do it at all.
It's not right to do that. It's best to speak to them in a calm manner, and there's better ways to if they did do something wrong, put them to the naughty step and let them know, have a time out. This is wrong and what's right. And yeah, there's no need to raise your hands or anything like that to your children. There's other ways around it, and a lot better ways as well, so you don't feel bad in yourself and you can see a bigger change in your child.
You can say, if you do not stop doing what you're doing, I will take away your phone or your Xbox, for example. And on occasions, depending on the children, that will work. However, if you take away a child's Xbox because they're behaving in a way you don't like, and then they continue to display those same sort of behaviours, you really are backed into a corner as a parent. It's almost like gives them the power in that situation, and you're left with very little chance of regaining control. So again, it's one of the best reasons why we focus on rewarding good behaviour and praising good behaviour, rather than focusing on removing items or punishing our children for bad behaviour. If you give out a sanction and then don't follow through, any kind of sanctions that you try and put in place in the future are not going to have so much of an effect, because the child will certainly remember that one time that you said you would do something and never did. So I think that kind of leads me on to the next point, really. If you're going to give out a sanction, it's got to be followed up consistently, and it's got to be followed up to the letter.
Very detailed answer there, as usual, Mr. Campbell. Thank you very much. But just to add on to something that you just touched on, so it will probably happen, like you say, it happens to us all. People get a bit wound up, and they get a bit more wound up until eventually they sort of lose their temper. So if a parent does that in front of their child, what should they do next?
I mean, I think there's a couple of things to kind of say in response, really. I mean, I think the first thing would be that, listen, if you're really losing it and you're really not in control of, your kind of mind, and you can sense that you're really, really enraged, best thing is to walk away. As long as the children kind of remain safe. If you need to kind of get out for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, compose yourself and then come back, that would definitely be my advice. Often when we get really, really angry, our kind of our minds don't work as well as they could do when we're kind of a bit more calmer, and so that's kind of when you end up dishing out the sanctions that are kind of like not really relevant to the situation. And also you can say things that you kind of don't really mean, and can be kind of damaging to the relationship you have with your children. I think it's important to think about just how frightening it is for a child when they see their mum or dad losing control and losing their temper and becoming angry and animated. I think if you're at that point, the best thing is just to walk away. And if you can come back and have a calmer discussion with your child about, the punishments that they're going to receive based on the behaviour that you don't want them to do again, then I don't see the problem with that. The most important thing that you can do as an adult in those situations is to own up to the fact that you did make a mistake, apologise to your child, and then you can have a conversation with that child about what we can do to make sure that dad doesn't do that again in the future. I think that is an amazing way of modelling good behaviour as a human being to our children, because the reality is that as a human, whether you're 5 years old or 55 years old, we all make mistakes. Learning from those mistakes is the best way to understand how we should have done things. The best way to do it is just to go for it, just to trust your intuitions and stuff. And if you do make mistakes, as I said, that there are ways of kind of rectifying them and still showing that you're a human being, but also teaching your children a nice, valuable life lesson.
All right then, Mr. Campbell. Do you think we need to take different approaches or use different discipline strategies with adolescent or teenage children?
If young people are treated with respect, they learn to respect others. Blame can be very unhelpful, but taking responsibility for our responses is also powerful. Often teenagers view themselves as being adults themselves, just without the life experience. And so if you don't treat them very similar to an adult, then they're not going to listen to you and they won't follow what you tell them. Stay respectful and calm, and try and agree with your young person that the situation needs a solution. Listen to your young person's point of view first and check that you understand it. Give your point of view in a calm manner. Agree on a plan together and make sure you review the plan to see if it's working. Try and stay flexible and accepting at all times.
Well, Mr. Campbell, we're coming to the end of this video now. So could you please provide us with your top tips around discipline?
So there are some really key top tips around discipline which can help all parents. The first thing I would say is understanding the triggers that are likely to make you or your child angry, and learn to manage your response around that. You need to understand the physical sensations that tell us when you're angry, such as feeling hot, your heart beating faster, a rushing feeling of thoughts in the brain, or sometimes people feel a bit clammy in their hands. Ideally, you would want to try and avoid those situations where you know it's hard for you to stay calm. But if it does happen and you notice yourself becoming angry, the best thing you can do is take a breath, count to 10 and collect your thoughts. Start again. It might be that you even need to walk away from the situation for a short while if you're feeling really wound up, as long as your child is safe while you're gone. I think once you've calmed down a little bit, use a firm, steady, but also respectful tone of voice when talking to your child, so that they learn that's the right way to communicate at all times. Try not to be critical or too harsh, and remember to choose your battles. Not every little thing needs to be a source of conflict between you and your child. Sometimes it's easier just to let the small things go and focus more on the big things that you really want to focus on with your parenting. And just think about the most important issue for your child at that time and focus on that.
Thanks for watching. We hope this video has given you a few tips on how to use discipline, as well as the best ways of managing misbehaviour.